you told me I was going to be making this video like 2 years ago, I would have told you were crazy, so I cannot believe we're here. Okay, first up, if I say RuneScape or RuneScape 3, I'm talking about that, and if I say old school or old school RuneScape, I'm obviously talking about that. That said, if you're contemplating playing the game and you're not sure if you should play or if you want to play, RuneScape 3 or old school RuneScape, well, if you're going to do free to play, kind of test out things, there is no comparison at all. RuneScape 3 free to play is in another dimension, in a positive way. Old school free to play is absolutely terrible. They very rarely add things to it. The game is not balanced around it. Skills are not balanced around it. It is really bad. There's a very little progression for a lot of skills, especially like magic. There is no equipment progression at all, and range doesn't really get much better. Now, should you start playing either of them? Honestly, probably not unless you have nostalgia for RuneScape. I don't think it really makes sense. There are some good things, and we'll talk about those, but I think there's generally more bad things, and there's probably a lot of other better things out there to do. Now, if you know several people that play and you're thinking, hey, maybe I can hang out with my friends or something, sure, go for it. Before I get started, here are my credentials, here are my skills. Probably don't pay too much attention to my prayer level. You can blame the Halloween event for that one. Here's all the quests that I've done. Here's my playtime, and here's the Lumbridge area tasks. I could jump through a bunch of hoops to try to censor my character's name, but I'd probably mess it up, so here it is. I don't think you can really do anything with it anyway. Okay, let's start with the visuals, since that's generally one of the most important things. In some places they're okay, maybe even good, but in other places not so good, especially like the player model. So like on the male face, there's this line right here you can see. Yeah, what the heck, there's no, I guess it's because of the beard thing, I don't know, but there's no line on there. And then the actual in-game face is not even the same one you see in the zoom in. It's like right here you can see there's clearly this line around the face because of how they handle beards. And then you're like, oh well, if you just go in here and get rid of that, it'll go away. No, there's still this line right there. Come on, JGuys, what the fuck? The worst part about that is, from what I've been told, you can increase the number of vertices or polygons on a mesh, usually quite a lot, before you start to have any performance impact. Now you're going to say, oh well, there can be like 50 players on the screen at once. I understand, but a lot of the helmets people wear totally hide the face anyway, so even if they tripled or quadrupled the number of vertices on the head, I don't think it would noticeably impact performance. I know most people probably don't have the camera down here where you can actually see that, but that's still pretty bad. Equipment can look quite a lot different. I don't know if it's like, oh, lower level stuff gets lower poly stuff and higher level stuff gets higher poly stuff, that's not really a good way to do it, because then you're giving your worst stuff to new players, and those players are going to have an impression of you based on that. So that's, if anything, it should be backwards to that. Some of the gear looks pretty good, some of it's not that great. The animations are usually okay, but especially for like a melee, kind of weird, and like it seems like all the one-hit melee weapons use the same animation, which is not acceptable. Like you poke them with the Warhammer, and yes, I know some Warhammers have spikes on the end, but the ones in game don't. And you do this like big sweep with a dagger, which you would never do with any weapon, because as soon as you do that, you die. I don't know exactly what they prioritize in terms of like development, but I feel like the visuals could definitely be improved, and I think it would probably be noticeable for a lot of people. Now the audio, on the other hand, the other day I watched 3 videos in a row. None of those channels play RuneScape. None of the videos were about RuneScape. RuneScape was not mentioned in a single one of them. All 3 videos had RuneScape music in them, and none of them played Sea Shanty 1 or 2. Like, what the fuck? The music is so iconic. People that don't even know about the game, I think, are using it. So, I think that speaks a lot to the music. The sound effects, sometimes they're pretty good. Like when you're smithing something, the sound effect changes as the item loses heat tip. To give you a tell, to like, hey, go heat it up. That's really good. But like some of the combat sound effects are not that great. So there is a bit of voice acting, but it's only for certain characters or certain quests, which is, I don't know how they've decided this, because to me, like, the most iconic quests are not voice acted. But though this random thing we added later is, which I do not understand their priorities at all. Dragon Slayer and Recipe for Disaster should absolutely be voice acted. Like, those are the most iconic RuneScape quests. Well, Cook's Assistant as well. Like, if you're not voice acting Recipe for Disaster, I don't know what the fuck to say to you guys. Now, I know Recipe for Disaster is not free to play, but still, Dragon Slayer should absolutely be voice acted as well. The voice acting is also way too quiet. Like, I have to turn my whole computer sound up, then turn everything but the voice acting down to be able to hear it, even if I don't have the music on. That's really bad, guys. You need to fix that. I mean, it's nice that there is some voice acting, but it's like very forgettable. It's not really helping that much. Okay, so as for the gameplay, the biggest complaint that I have is the user interface. Now, when I say user interface, people think, oh, that's the graphical user interface. That's part of the user interface. The user interface is every way you interact with the game. And in my opinion, it's critical for the interface to be, seamless and intuitive for the game. Because if it's not, it's going to hurt immersion really bad. It's just going to make the whole experience worse. Now, I'll say that because this game uses click to move, which is an unacceptable unless you're playing RTS or maybe like a tabletop sort of game. That now something's like, oh, Baldur's Gate 3 is click to move. No, I played on a gamepad outside of combat, and if I couldn't, I probably would not have played the game. Click to move is that bad. Oh yeah, they can fly and like summon like meteors and shit, but walking through a door is hard because of click to move, and you click on the door. Also with click to move, I'm constantly thinking about where I need to click next to minimize the amount of clicks I need to click, and also have the camera zoomed way out so I can again minimize the number of clicks, which all of that completely removes any chance for immersion. And in my opinion, immersion is really important, especially in a role-playing game. It's only more important in a horror game. And click to move just obliterates any chance for there to be any level of immersion. I can't have the camera like down next to my character because I'm going to click on stuff in the way or something the camera's colliding with. Aerial is so fucking good, by the way. It's absolutely insane. Best quality of life feature of all time. Now, to be fair, I've played like 4 MMOs and only one of them had any level of immersion. It was arguably the worst one. Like World of Warcraft has no immersion. Final Fantasy XIV has very little immersion. I guess maybe like the cutscenes, they do those pretty well, but like just in the game world, there's no immersion. Like I don't know how to fix that exactly, but they are not delivering any of that. And RuneScape is like, very small level of immersion. I don't know exactly like what gives you immersion. I think there's several factors that go into it, but I don't think there's like a one thing that's gonna like guarantee you have immersion. Even a first person game doesn't necessarily have immersion, even though that usually helps a lot. I think it's a combination of like the camera perspective, the graphics, maybe like sound effects in the environment, stuff like that. And there's probably some more stuff in there as well, but RuneScape's definitely not hitting to any of those. One thing the game does really well is it has a lot of variety. There's tons of different skills you can do, which often do lots of different things. There's also like mini games that actually give you meaningful rewards. There's quests, there's distractions and diversions, there's all kinds of stuff to do, and I think very few games are competing on variety with RuneScape. Like, I don't think there's a single thing out there that has any chance. Now, I guess if we boil it down all the way, it's like you click on a thing and wait. But okay, if we really distill it down all the way, I guess they're all the same thing. Because, oh, you want a smith? Okay, you click and wait. You want to attack? You click and wait. You want to fish? Click and wait. You want to dig up something? You click and wait. Yeah, I guess. But I don't think most people are gonna see it like that, and I don't see it like that either. But now there's 29 skills, and there's lots of different stuff to do, and you're thinking like, oh well, surely a lot of that stuff is not very good or almost pointless or weaker than other stuff, and I don't think so. I feel like they generally do a pretty good job of balancing the game. Almost all the skills have some reason to train, especially if you're an Iron Man. Another important aspect of especially RPGs, but I think MMOs as well, is how grindy they are, and RuneScape does kind of have a reputation for being pretty grindy. Now, if for free to play, most skills usually stop giving you stuff at like level 50 or maybe level 60, and I don't feel like the grind to get up to those for most skills is usually that bad. So I'd say the grind is generally tolerable. They do give you a mix of like incremental rewards, but also occasionally like a bigger reward, but sometimes the bigger reward's not like really worth the extra effort that it took to get it. So I feel like they could maybe tweak those a little bit, but I don't think they're going to do that at this point. The main problem I have with the grinding is the level padding. A lot of skills don't give you anything except every like 5 or 10 levels, and that means there's levels where you just like don't really get anything, and that's kind of lame in my opinion, especially considering that the game's based on Dungeons and Dragons. You get usually major stuff every level up or like every other level up. You're never like, oh god, I leveled up, health goes up, lol, that was it. No, that does not happen. And lastly, I want to talk about like just the game world, like the story and all that sort of stuff together. The game world to me is like the opposite of like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. Those are like 95+% literally empty. And there's like a very small section, like there's little dots every now and then where, oh, there's like a thing you can harvest over here. Oh, there's an enemy you might want to kill over here. And RuneScape is like the opposite. The world is pretty compact, and there's usually a lot of stuff to do in just about every area. It's like some areas are a little more barren than others, but I think they've like scrunched the map down in several places, especially in the free-to-play area. They've compacted the game world a lot, which I don't think most other games are like, oh yeah, we made the map smaller. Most people wouldn't be excited about that, but thumbs up, RuneScape 3 team, that was a good decision. They also added like teleports like Final Fantasy XIV has, so even though the world is smaller and it's pretty easy to get around, they're like, no, you can still use the lodestones to get around, which is really good decision. The world layout and density of just stuff to do I think is really good, and that's one of the best parts of the game for me. Quests in a lot of other games are just like, oh, go kill 5 things or go do this, and yeah, I guess you could call Slayer kind of like that, but the quests in the game were actually adventures. Even like some of the like really short quests are not really that great, but there are definitely some really iconic, memorable quests that tell a cool story, and it's not always like just based on some like popular myth or whatever. Like Recipe for Disaster, I think it's probably based on something, but Recipe for Disaster is really iconic and cool. And there's a lot of recurring characters and enemies and stuff like that. I think that the quests work generally pretty well, and that's another selling point for the game. I just wish they were all voice acted, and the voice acting was solid. That would bring things up another level. So like overall, there's definitely some good stuff, like the world, the variety, quests, like mini games. There's definitely good stuff out there. The music, but there's also stuff that is both could be addressed, but absolutely will not be addressed because it would require them to change the whole game. Like having keyboard movement, that would be like a whole new game. Okay, like they might as well just call that RuneScape 4 or something, right? Or like removing like a level padding and condensing all the levels down. They are not going to do that because that fundamentally changes like so many parts of the game. They're not going to do stuff like that. So I think there's some good stuff in there, but overall I think for most people probably aren't going to care. Now you can idle a lot of stuff in the game. There's a lot of stuff you can do that's like AFK or semi-AFK, and if you're looking for something to do kind of like on the side, you might like that, but if you're looking for like a main thing to do that really requires a lot of focus and attention, I don't know if this is it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found the review helpful.